Hi, I'm going to read to you a section from my book, Dream Street. Each morning, unless it's raining, Mr. Sidney reads the newspaper on his stoop. Dressed to the nines, Miss Sarah likes to say. What's the nines? A child will ask, and Miss Sarah will answer, fancy, fancy. Mr. Sidney is a retired mail carrier, living his dream of never having to wear a uniform again. He tips his big brown fedora and greets everyone with, "Don't wait to have a great day, create one." Miss Sarah, also known as the Hat Lady, is Belle's great auntie. Her voice is only a whisper, but there are stories between the lines of her face that she'll share when you come close. She has lived on Dream Street longer than anyone, even longer than some of the trees, watching children turn into grown-ups and listening to their dreams along the way.
Yes, I think that it has a huge role. I think it can be many things. I think it can be comfort, especially in these difficult times that we have right now. I know that, whenever someone I'm speaking with needs something, there's some trauma or something tragic has occurred, I'm always looking for prose or poetry to send to them or to add to a note that I might be writing. So it's there for that, I think. I think it's also there to inspire. When I'm writing myself, I always like to have something that I'm reading that doesn't interfere with my own writing, but that will inspire me to go beyond, where I'm going on my own. I think that it can, provide joy in certain situations. It's also a way to learn. I can't imagine teaching writing without also, teaching students how to read critically and to read as writers as well as readers. So I think it fills many roles. I have taught high school, and I have at least spoken with children in lower grades than that. I think that it's important on a lot of levels as well, because many times it's very therapeutic to write. I always encourage students to keep journals. They need to feel safe that no one's reading them, of course, to really fully express themselves. But it definitely can serve as a kind of therapy in a way. But also it's a way for them to discover many things about themselves. So a lot of times, just through writing and journaling, they really start to understand different things about themselves, as well as discover that maybe they're a writer. So many students have, become writers just by writing and finding out, oh yes, I can, I do enjoy words. I do enjoy putting language together. I do enjoy, telling a story or realizing that I have a story to tell. Sometimes when students are young, they think they don't, have anything to tell or anything to share, but it's quite the opposite. So I think that, it fulfills many needs. Oh, sure. There's many. And of course, there are the traditional ones, Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, writers like that. I think right now, though, there are some younger writers popping up, and there are many African writers that I'm very interested and excited about. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie comes to mind. This writer just had a new book come out called Glory, No Violet Bulawayo, and she wrote We Need New Names. That was an astonishing book. So there are some short story writers that I think are doing wonderful things. Jamel Brinkley, a writer we just read in my creative writing fiction class, Alexia Arthurs, who wrote a book called How to Love a Jamaican. So I think that writing is like happening everywhere. All kinds of people are doing it. There's so much more work, diverse work by writers of color that I'm really excited about. And so, yeah, there's plenty of authors who inspire me. Thank you for that question. Oh, absolutely. I think that writers who, first of all, know how to tell a story, and this may sound very basic, but you've got to have the beginning, the middle, the end. You've got to have the conflict in there that rises to a crescendo, that then comes back down to a conclusion that's not necessarily, tying something up with a bow, but that's satisfactory on some ways, even if it doesn't end happily. I think that a good writer has to be able to create three-dimensional characters that feel real, that feel authentic. The dialogue has to do the same thing. The story has to, move forward. And I really feel like it has to do a lot of different things. It has to do a lot of work. You know what I mean? It has to inspire. It has to excite. It has to keep a reader turning the pages. So there's many things that a writer is tasked with. And luckily, many writers are up to that task. I think that, a writer I admire once told me that writing should be able to last 100 years. You know what I mean? It should be, even if it's, say, particular characters in a particular area and moment of time, it should be universal. It should speak to a lot of different people, people who maybe speak different languages or have different upbringings. But, the story itself needs to be universal and needs to transcend time. And so, that may sound like it's a lot to do, but there are works that can do that. I mean, I think back to James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room, written, I don't even know how long ago, in the 50s, I think. And that story, it was so brave and so courageous, and it still resonates. My daughter just read it. So, I think that's the extra thing that I think, some people should strive for. Fails, huh? Well, I mean, I sort of cringe at that term, but I think if it doesn't work if it doesn't do some of the key things, if it doesn't tell a story, if it doesn't, if I can't believe in the characters or what they're saying, if nothing happens, if there's no change from the beginning to the end, either in the character or the situation, then I'm disappointed. I'm looking for something else, and I want to go on to the next thing. I also like a piece of writing to grab my attention, early on. Like right now, I'm reading stories for a writing retreat and judging based on those stories which writers will get to go to this retreat. And so, there's a lot of them, so I have to read them quickly. And so if the story doesn't grab me right away, then I'm like, okay, sorry, so I'm looking for something to grab me and pick me up like a roller coaster ride, and then take me off on this journey that I'm excited to go on. So if it doesn't do that, it's a problem. I think with a children's book, you have a very short space of time. It's very different from an adult novel. You only have, I think it's like 36 pages, and you still need to tell a story. And actually, with a children's book, you also need to be able to teach something. So, in other words, by the end of the story, the child has learned something, but it can't be a heavy-hitting message. You don't want to beat them over the head with it. So very subtly, there needs to be a lesson taught. And I think it's really important in a children's book that the child or the children in the story are the ones who solve whatever the issue is, or help teach the lesson themselves or learn the lesson themselves. So that's not the adult coming in to rescue them. That's what most publishers are looking for, and I think I'm looking for too when I'm trying to write a children's book myself or reading them to get inspired. So, I'll say those things in a more succinct way. So that there needs to be it needs to be engaging. It needs to be illustratable. Because an artist has to come in and make pictures that go along with your words. So that's really different from, say, an adult novel or something. And so you have to write something that they can, create a picture out of, but also you're teaching something. The child who reads that is going to learn a lesson ultimately that is not too heavy-handed, but, very subtle and very engaging. Oh, well, I think that the Hurston Wright, Zora Neale Hurston Richard Wright organization is doing amazing things for African American writers and young writers. So I'd like to give them a shout out. I'm just working on some new things, so I don't have anything I can shout out as yet. But I do want to add that my Instagram has changed, so it's at Tricia Writing this time. So thank you so much.